What advice do you have for a man who is terrified of getting married due to the husband's responsibilities, feminism, and a woman taking half of his wealth after divorce? Get a prenuptial agreement. That's usually the best way to set guardrails in place. Al-Hijrah just recently partnered with Bayani.com. So if you actually go to our matrimonial procedures, one of the recommendations we do have is getting a prenuptial agreement. This is something myself and another colleague, we actually went over it, the entire process of what a prenuptial agreement looks like. And part of the reason for this is for an individual to protect their assets, right? I think that's something that's really important in any marriage. And also for women to know that, hey, okay, there's definitely a risk that's involved in getting into marriage, and this is for both men and women. There are a lot of problems, I would say, in the Western legal structure, in the Western paradigm of what alimony looks like and what care is supposed to look like for a woman. But it's important for us to understand as Muslims that there are protected classes. There's no doubt about that, and that is represented in Surah An-Nisa. So when we look at Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about the protected classes. Like who are those people? Those people are women, those people are orphans, those people are slaves, those people are prisoners, right? These are all considered protected classes, meaning that they're given special privileges that other classes of people are not given. Those that are handicapped, right? Right? Like, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about all of these individuals and these different types of people in Surah An-Nisa. And if we understand that there are protected categories, it makes a lot of sense on why it's 95% plus of homeless are men, right? Because there are a lot of avenues and there are a lot of pathways for women to seek housing and get housing, but those same pathways don't exist for men. So there are a lot of support networks that definitely there, and they definitely do exist. There's a lot less, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot less compassion toward men, right? When it comes to the difficulties and hardships that they face, and I think there's a lot more compassion toward women. And again, these things, I'm not putting them down. It's something I think it's important for us as a community, as a people, to understand that if you have protected classes and if you have these people who require special protections and special care, there's always going to be a lean toward that. And the reason I mention that is that when you have that lean entering the judicial spaces, and part of the problem, at least here in the United States, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Title 4D. So basically Title 4D is a federal clause that was put in, I don't remember exactly when, I want to say in the 70s, but basically this was a law that said that any time the judge rules, the state is given a matching payment for the alimony. Now, it doesn't matter where the alimony comes from, right? Whether it comes from man or woman, the judge, wherever the judge rules, and there's an alimony payment that comes from that, the federal government matches that payment and they give it to the county. Now, what does that incentivize? It incentivizes alimony payments, right? So what they'll try to do is that they'll choose the spouse that has more money. And in general, historically, it's always been men, right? Because they're the ones who are generally the providers for the family. And this is why the system is skewed. It's not skewed because it hates men. I don't believe that's the case. I think it's always important for us to look at larger systems and be like, oh no, it's because they hate this group of people or because it hates men. No. It's usually some type of money involved, if we're being honest. And it's just a matter of following the money and figuring out where those payments are and where they're going. So if we understand that that's the case, and that there are always going to be leans toward the person who makes more money in the relationship, and that's where they're going to get the payments from, because where's the judge's salary coming from? Where's the court being supported? Who's paying for the bailiff? Who's paying for the one who's taking the scripts and the notes and the court recorder? It's coming from that money, right? It's coming from the alimony money. And if you guys get a chance, look it up, right? Look at the payments that the federal government has been making for all of these divorce cases. Not surprisingly, divorce also went up. Right, so if you incentivize divorce and if you put money behind it, then you're going to have an entire industry of lawyers, of judges, of all of these things are going to take advantage of it because everybody wants money. So what do? I think it's important to remove financial incentives one of the easiest ways for us to remove financial incentives is making sure that we have prenuptial agreements. Now, a brother might say, okay, well, what if I have a prenuptial agreement and this potential woman or this potential young woman, she's not interested in it? Then don't marry her, right? I know sometimes we get emotionally invested in relationships, and that's completely understandable. But if we all understand that, okay, hey, listen, getting into a marriage, there's only so much I can learn about someone in a week, in a month, in 3 months, whatever the case might be. And essentially, I'm marrying a stranger, right? And this is important to keep in mind. I'm marrying a stranger. Even if I know, what are some of the things I'm looking for? Okay, maybe we have shared goals, maybe our personalities click, maybe we have a few shared hobbies, maybe we agree on a number of things concerning what marriage looks like and what the family structure should be and how home life should be like. Okay, we agreed on all those things. That's great. Is it necessary that both or either of them are being truthful? That's something to keep in mind. Inshallah, people are, right? Like, I would hope, at least in those settings, people are. But just in case, right? And this is always important. Just in case, what do? We set guardrails to make sure that I, as a husband, am not abusive toward my wife, and so that the wife is not abusive toward the husband. So what do? You put in as many guardrails and rules as you can in place to make sure and to prevent that from happening. And that is the purpose of a prenuptial agreement. And I'm not going to say, listen, this is not a red flag either way. So if you go and if you're talking to a young woman, if you had a number of conversations, you've gotten to a point and be like, you know what, I think this woman would be a good wife for me, and you present the idea of a prenuptial agreement and she disagrees with it, now you also have a choice. You can continue the relationship or not. You can decide, okay, hey, listen, I want to get married. And you might be like, oh, isn't that a red flag for her? No, not necessarily. It's something that's generally not culturally accepted, right? There's a big stigma around it. And the same thing goes like the opposite way. Can it delay the process? 100%. But like I said, the important thing is that everyone, whether it be the potential husband or the potential wife, everybody has to make sure to do the best that they can to protect themselves when they're getting into the marriage, because the marriage is an agreement between two people, and we need to see and make sure that neither person violates that agreement, and the only way to do that is through legal recourse. People come to me all the time, right? People come to my office, like, I'm having these issues and I'm having this problem. Hey, can you tell my husband this, or can you tell my wife that? Yeah, Habibi, I can tell her or him whatever you want me to tell. At the end of the day, you know what they can do? They can be like, who are you, and hang up in my face. Just being honest. I don't have the ability to subpoena. I don't have the ability to force anyone. I don't have the ability to research anybody's records. Right? I can't do any of those things. And because I, as the imam, have not been given that power. Well, you know who has been given that power? The state. And if I bring this contract to the state and say, hey, listen, I agreed on these things, now the state will enforce that contract. And this is, again, one of the ways to protect our assets. This is one of the ways to protect our children, because children are the ones who tend to be hurt the most in these relationships. The wife many times will use the children as a pawn against the father. There are many times the father will use the pawn against the wife. And they'll be used as a means to get more money out of each other, or to get less money, depending on the situation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our children. So for that young man who is scared, I think the fear is good, right? Being a little bit timid. If you were too comfortable, I'd be worried. But marriage is it's a big change, right? It's a big change in our lives. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq.